So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Hey, we're going to be going to South Korea to discuss how to fire someone in the country. And this is part of a long running series on this channel where we discuss the ins and outs of employment law throughout the world compared to the United States for the most part, but drawing on some of my knowledge throughout the world, we try to draw that in and discuss and compare. And we're going to go to South Korea today. You know, they're officially known as the Republic of Korea. It's a vibrant and technologically advanced country located on the Korean Peninsula in East Asia. Capital is Seoul. Major cities are Busan, Incheon, Daegu, Daejeon. They have about 51 million people, and it's a highly urbanized country, significantly concentrated in and around Seoul. And, it is a very labor union rich country. If you want to learn more, check out some of the discussions on the International Labor Organization website. It's a very great resource for these sort of things. South Korea has a high union density, specifically in the industries and larger companies. Just for reference, a union density refers to the proportion of wages and salary earners who are trade union members. It's generally enterprise level. Meaning it's across representing workers within specific companies, which is different from, for example, Northern Europe, where industry level unions are more common. In the United States, it's a bit of a mix, but for the most part, they're enterprise level. The legal framework governing labor unions in South Korea includes the Trade Unions and Labor Relations Adjustment Act. And I wanted to touch base on a little bit about South Korea before I got going. One of the things that I found to be quite interesting about the country with respect to its human resources labor laws is that South Korea transitioned from a 6-day work week to a 5-day work week in 2004. And that was a really big deal. It was a part of an effort to improve work-life balance and enhance the quality of life for workers. I have here a snippet from an article by the New York Times in 2002. As an assistant manager in a finance company, mentioned that it's true I can spend more time with family and friends, but it will mean spending more money on them too. It will be very inconvenient for me if the banks are closed on Saturdays. And so ultimately, again, they went to a 5-day work week. That's actually kind of interesting. Generally speaking, it's a 5-day, 80-hour work week in the United States, but that's not entirely true, right? That's just literally for overtime. And how you will be paid. There is no limit for the most part as to how much you can work, at least federally in the United States. Now, in many states, specifically that I can remember, Wisconsin, I believe California, they have rules that are like 1 day off in 7 or 2 in 14, and so there are rules surrounding work weeks throughout the country. But as far as I'm aware, there is no federal labor law specifically surrounding a 5-day work week. So let's get into firing employees here in South Korea. They have to have just cause, which is similar to most of the world. And the way that the Supreme Court has sort of determined just cause is whether or not the employee's liability is such that an employment relationship cannot be maintained given social norms. There's no real specific definitions. There is in the United States that there is a bit of a standard surrounding just cause. In 1964, a labor arbitrator named Carol Doherty introduced the 7 tests of just cause, and those are fair notice, prior enforcement, due process, substantial evidence, equal treatment, progressive discipline, mitigating and extenuating circumstances. And it's somewhat well defined specifically in the labor sphere in the United States. However, in South Korea, there's sort of backup case law and things of that nature to define it. They don't. They do have to give a notice prior to dismissal, but you can pay wages in lieu. You can do less than. You have to give a 30-day notice in advance notice of dismissal, but you can pay a month effectively without giving notice. However, like many countries, there is rules that support a termination for acts of gods, where natural calamities make it such that you can't continue the business, and that is where an employer can dismiss an employee without notice. In addition, if an employee damages business or its assets, they can be dismissed without notice. They have a specific calculator surrounding severance pay that's not tied to the contract, and it's Average daily wage for the past 3 months multiplied by 30, multiplied by the employee's number of years of service, and it has to be paid within 2 weeks of resignation. Effectively, that means that the employer will pay a month for every year of service that you have, which is pretty significant. I mean, that could be serious. And one of part of South Korea's culture with respect to business is lifetime employment, and and being sort of connected with the business. So if you're removed from a role like that where you've worked there for a long time, that could mean a lot of money for a South Korean employee. The Labor Standards Act defines how, why you can't terminate someone for medical treatment for an occupational injury or a childbirth. Employer may not dismiss the employee during the period of suspension or for 30 days immediately after. And so, ultimately, workers' comp and childbirth are the only things that are two that are protected specifically. And that mirrors my experience with much of the world. Childbirth specifically seems to be an unalienable right, such that you cannot be terminated for it. Of course, you can't be terminated in the United States under FMLA, assuming that your employer and yourself meet the tests, applicable for FMLA, right? I always cover the minimum retirement age because I think it's interesting. Employers can set a retirement policy, but it has to be 60 or older. That's very curious. Any age below 60 will be deemed invalid. As a result, the minimum wage at minimum is always going to be 60, and the retirement age may be graduated higher depending on the organization. Of course, that is not the case anywhere in the United States, and that would be considered discriminatory based on age. And so I find that to be quite curious and a good lesson for many people who are looking. As I always ask, if you're South Korean and you have input, please let me know. I think that there's a lot that isn't being said in these documents. There's a lot that is a question of whether or not it's actually enforced or not. There are worlds where these things actually don't matter that much because the government isn't actually enforcing these particular rules. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.